What's the funniest thing that's happened to you during sex? As I was going down on my wife, the cat decided it would be a good time to climb and sit on top of my head. I tried to ignore it, but when she looked down she started laughing so hard that it killed the mood for the rest of the night. Pussy sandwich. I'm a little late to the party, but here goes. My good single friend used to live with me and my wife. A girl he went to high school with calls him up one day looking for a bit of action, and a bit later she shows up and they retreat to his room. After a bit she starts screaming really loudly, top of her lungs loud. My wife and I smile. He had warned us that she was a screamer, and we waited for it to be over. 20 minutes go by and she hasn't stopped. My wife and I are getting coats on to go for a walk when the doorbell rings. We answer it and it is our deaf neighbor saying that it felt like someone was screaming and he wasn't sure if he needed to call the cops. We explained with some crude pointing and hand gestures that people were just banging and everything was all right. We also told him we were going for a walk to get away from the noise for a while. We then go for a walk. It's around 10:30 p.m. and in the fall, so we head down to a bar a few blocks away to get out of the chill and have a drink. After 45 minutes we figure everything should have wrapped up by now and we head home. About a block from home we start to hear her, still screaming. Woman had an amazing set of lungs and both of them had some serious endurance. Walked past the house and went for another walk. We were only gone for another half hour and we didn't go too far, but we heard the screaming stop, so we turned around and went home. By the time we got there his friend was leaving and we filled in my friend on how loud she was. We still pick on him to this day. I was going down on my girlfriend in high school. I was kneeling next to the bed with her legs hanging off the end. I was fully erect and my cat came from under the bed and licked the tip of my penis. Scared the shit out of me. If you have ever felt a cat's tongue you'll know how horribly uncomfortable that felt on the tip of my member. Looks like your dick touched the wrong pussy. No joke. True story. I was seeing this really tiny girl about 13 years ago, shortly after my divorce. It was purely a casual thing as she really liked being spanked, told what to do and so on, and we always finished with rough sex. Anyway, she had lost her eye as an infant due to cancer in her tear duct and she had a glass eye. Not very obvious unless you looked closely. Anyway, after one of our sessions, I had her bent over the bed and I was going at her doggy style, and all of a sudden, I see something fly over the bed and roll across the blanket. Without losing a beat, I calmly asked her if that was what I think that is. She says yes and I just keep going until I finish. Afterwards we laughed and cleaned up and she says, well, now you can tell people you f***ed some girl so hard you knocked her eye out. Good times. I read Tiny Girl and 13 and was really concerned. Either first or second time I had sex with my ex. We'd literally just finished. As in I hadn't even pulled out of her yet and her mum walks in. We both freeze and I dare not look because her mum was a bit fierce and all I hear is, oh, I thought you were just friends, and then the door close again. My ex bursts out laughing and about 5 minutes later I hear her mum on the phone telling her sister. I used to have a cat, named Voltaire. His nickname was Felis Interruptus. He would climb on my now ex-husband's back when he was on top. One of the very first times I ever had sex, I looked out my window to see my neighbor having sex with his girlfriend. He noticed me and nodded "what's up" mid-stroke. Later found out that the girl he was having sex with at that moment was my neighbor from the house that I had just moved away from like 6 months prior. My new neighbor was my old neighbor and I saw them while having sex with my girlfriend. One time I thought I had closed the door, but my dog is smart AF and got it open, trotted up to the bed, and gave my boyfriend's foot a quick lick. He was so startled he yelled WTFY, and the dog, feeling guilty, came to where I was laying and tried to get forgiveness pets by shoving at my arm. I was wheezing from laughter. We were 17. Girlfriend's playlist was going in her car. We were in the trunk so we couldn't reach the phone playing the music. Sappy love song, alt rock song, and then Kermit the Frog. I have no idea what the song was because I was too busy having sex for like the third time ever, but she started laughing and I stopped and laughed for a second and she looked at it like she was going to change it, but I plowed right through. So we to Kermit the Frog. It's a fun memory. Since we were teens and I was away at boarding school most of the time, whenever we saw each other all we did was have sex. So I don't have a lot of fun memories with her of just like hanging out. So it's nice that I have this one. In middle of it we heard her little brother jokingly yell from the other side of the door, "Don't be f***." Then he ran in. Didn't have any time to hide. So I just stared at him. He yelled "Oh f***" and ran out of the room. Other thing that is more embarrassing than funny, but my girlfriend's mother has the tendency to either not knock at all or knock on the door but no wait at all before rushing in. Most of the time we've managed to hide. Of course she probably always knows what has been happening, but at least she hasn't seen me fully naked a whole lot. But once my girlfriend was sitting on top of me and her mom came in. Girlfriend managed to grab a blanket, but she literally sitting on top of me isn't obvious at all. I'm acknowledging your privacy by knocking but coming in ANYWAYYY. Smashes the door down immediately. My chest and hers came together in exactly the right way to form a vacuum. When we changed position, there was this cartoon-like schmack when we pulled apart. It killed the mood and we both broke down in fits of giggles. I was with a girl who liked to wrestle a bit and be held down, except she was a dancer with incredibly powerful legs and I underestimated her, and she accidentally kicked me in the chest and broke one of my ribs. This girl was going down on me for a bit and after she gets tired she comes to give me a kiss. I whisper to her, "Now it's my turn," and she looks at me with the most confused look of disgust and says, "What? You're gonna suck your own dick?" My girlfriend was on top and her Fitbit starts going off. She looks at it and throws her hands up and says yes. I met my steps goal. I had gone over to this guy's house wearing my new Vans shoes. I was in high school, so these $50 shoes were my Sunday's best. We went upstairs and started going at it. He was behind me and I was facing the window to the backyard. Like 5 minutes in I see his dog run into the backyard and tear one of my new shoes apart all over the grass. I thought it was so funny I couldn't even be upset. I miss that dog. Funny story, we decided that it would be a good idea to try something new, dating for nearly 2 years at this point, and went to have sex in the shower. Foreplay happened. The shower was on. To add to the disaster, I knocked my shampoo by accident, but we shrugged it off. Last thing I knew, he slipped on the shampoo and we both went down. He cracked his pelvis, nothing too dangerous, so he was fine after some months, and I had a cut on my lip because I bit it by accident when we fell. We're not dating anymore, but we're still friends, and we still laugh about it. Turns out the headboard was exactly the right height to sit on for a BJ. Turns out the headboard wasn't strong enough to hold his weight. They don't call it a headboard for nothing. It's not so much the funniest, but the most embarrassing, was seeing a guy who was just a super big fan of vaginas. Thought they were beautiful and all that crap. Midway it's really hot, so he stops to go open a window. I decide now is a perfect time it get in a seductive pose. So I'm on all fours, back arched. I got the response I wanted. He went back there to play around, and I guess released some trapped air. Let me say, the air was aggressive. You ever see the gif of the cow with the wig on, and its hair is blowing majestically? That's what I imagined he looked like. Boyfriend was going down on me. He started doing a Cookie Monster impression while he was down there. Made me laugh so hard I let out a little fart right on his face. Coochie Monster. We were doing the deed and the guy felt a fart coming. To his credit, he warned me and tried to cover the noise by singing in a high-pitched voice. For a solid 10 seconds he was farting machine gun style while yodeling loudly. Still not the worst sex I've had. My ex-girlfriend would have these really long days at work and come home and say, "Honey, do the thing." So she'd lay down and put on Netflix or start reading a book and I'd begin playing with her. Nothing too crazy. In fact, the tamer the better. Usually just fingering and slight nipple play. I always had to contain my laughing because she'd be laying there almost lifeless. No moaning, not really any moving, the occasional right there, but otherwise it would be like she was sleeping, and then out of nowhere she'd finish. I know she'd finish because she'd kinda quietly buck her legs and be as still as possible and slowly arch her back. and then say okay I came thanks babe, and then it was time for bed for her. It was always so funny because in normal sex she was always so full of life and energy and loud and moving a lot and wanting to switch positions. Yes, I know she was just using me to come. I was honestly honored that she'd even want me to help her that way lol. It was a lovely summer evening and my parents were out shopping. After calculating the time I have left, I invited my girlfriend over. We were 16 at that time after we started having sex on the couch. My parents suddenly came back and my naked girlfriend jumped out of the window, straight to the garden. I couldn't find a reasonable explanation for why am I naked. The window is open and plants which were on the windowsill are now on the floor. I've never been that embarrassed in my life. This is with my current sir. A few months ago we were getting hot and heavy and his absolute best friend called in the middle of it. Without missing a beat my boo answered the call, still thrusting. His friend was inviting us both out to go eat brunch. Watching this man just smiling down at me trying his absolute best not to make it sound like he's having sex while still very much having it and talking about his favorite food made me laugh my ass off. Needless to say we never finished, but it made my day.